Okay, this is how we learn, Bruce. Why do we fall down? So we can learn to get back up again. Okay, cool. Jose's going to edit all this in post. Ha ha ha. Even though it won't have all the beginning stuff. But long story short, I'm rebuilding this damper. I've got everything cleaned up, swapped out. Let me just run through what I was saying before. So this is a White Brothers BW 1.0 damper out of this old White Brothers fork. BW stands for big wheel, so this is one of the first 29-inch production forks. The damper is effectively a very nice version of the Judy damper. So Judy damper originally had the plastic body, then it had the alloy body. And these slide into the fork legs and then are held in place with a circlip, whereas this one threads into the upper leg. So overall, I think it's a stiffer design, it's a better design, plus they didn't even ever bother with the plastic. So the other neat thing about this one is this has both compression and rebound adjustments, and this one has a lockout. So this is the top out bumper, but you can see there's a hole right here, and when you use the adjuster, it just closes the hole. See if you can see that. Just shuts off oil flow and then opens oil flow. And then on this side, the way the compression setting works is effectively the same. You turn this whole rod and it closes off a valve right here, and that's what makes it lock out. So on the rebound side, you can see that even when it's closed, it's not fully closed because you don't want to lock out your rebound, but this side it shuts everything off. But for bleed, we're going to open this up because we want oil to flow through. I've replaced this O-ring right here. That's your piston O-ring. These O-rings right here are not in the Judy kit because this is not technically the same as the Judy. And these, I believe, are just backing O-rings that shove against these piston shims. So, but this damper does share the same main seals and this seal. Also, it comes with the adjuster O-ring from the Judy kit, but this one is a little bit different, and it's in really good shape, so I'm going to leave it alone because they are not the same. It won't do the same job. So, all right, let's bang this thing out. Oh, and to go back to what I was saying before the audio wasn't working, huge thank you to a customer named Oliver who sent this back in, I think, February. So he's been very, very patient, waiting quite a long while to get this back in his hands. But we're doing it now. So Oliver, thanks for your patience. This will go out in the mail on Monday, assuming something doesn't totally blow up. So let's party. The other thing I was saying is that there's SRP makes a tool for bleeding the Judy cartridges, but because the Judy cartridge has a dummy hole, and this just plugs right in, and this one has an adjuster, it doesn't fit. So I'm going to use a modern RockShox Trek through shaft damper plug to plug that hole when I'm bleeding it. Okay, run that on there. Also, the Judy cartridge has a circlip on one end, and then you just shove the seal in the other end, and this is held in place when it's pushed into the fork by a circlip. But this design, because this is not held in with a circlip, this is threaded into the fork lower, it uses a circlip at both ends. So Jeff at SRP had a really a good suggestion from the last video. Since there's a circlip at this end, if you can avoid shoving a seal past any sharp glands, it's best to start by pushing the seal in from this end against the circlip, and that way you don't worry about messing up this seal as it goes through. But because this design has a circlip on both ends, I don't really have a choice, so it just makes more sense to push the seal in, put the circlip in, put the plug in, fill it up, and then assemble it. So we're going to go that route. Slick honey everywhere. And then this is directional, so you can see it's kind of kind of got a cup shape to it. So this is the outside. This should be facing out from the tube, and this is the inside. And these are really tight. Like they are super tight, which is good because it's supposed to be oil sealing. I have a socket that just happens to fit pretty perfectly in here, so I'm going to use that. I'm going to hold this in the vise over here and just shove it in. See if I can't get it a little bit here. You kind of got to be careful because you can push this all the way through. But it just needs to go past so we can get this spacer and then this circlip installed. Real tight. See if I can swing this around. Squeaky. Okay, so what I've done is I've taken the socket and I've mounted it in the vise. And it's solid, it's not going anywhere. And then I'm going to shove this into this. And then you can see that this is kind of set. I can kind of set the depth here. Like, I want to make sure that I can go a little too far, because what I'll do is I'll push the seal in, put in the spacer and then the circlip, and then I can come back from the other side and butt it up against the edge. So, see how much I can get out of this. Boom. So that's in there. Now, spacer. Circlip. Circlips have sharp edges and round edges, and because the pressure is wanting to push out, you always want to have the sharp edge facing away, facing out. That way, as pressure is trying to push, that sharp edge is digging into that circlip groove. And then this should be, you should be able to, with a little bit of pressure in here, you should be able to spin this. That way you know that it's in that groove. You don't want it down out of the way, you don't want it halfway up. You're going to make sure that is in the groove. And then to make sure that is where I want it to be, I want something a little smaller than that. There we go. So this is an 11, and I am just going to shove this in there. And all I've done is just push that seal up against that. All my buddies should fall out. Good. Okay. And then I'm going to grease the inside of this and then run the plug inside. So we'll see if we can see inside here. Turn this down a bit. Too much power. So you can see the plug is down inside there. It basically is just sealing the bottom of this so that when I run the shaft through, I'm going to find that plug, engage it. This is when it's full of oil, and then I'm going to push that plug out, and then this will seal the compartment. On this one, they've made this upper shaft long enough that you can see that the piston isn't going to engage the body before the shaft engages the main seal. So probably I could technically do this without plugging it, but it's just easier to have this thing full of oil and have it all overflow as I go to load this up. So let me move some stuff around. I know the side angle's better. Switch to the soft rubber jaws. Don't need to crush it, but I don't want it to go anywhere. This one's getting 5 weight. And it doesn't have to be perfectly full because the shaft is going to displace some oil. Haha, of course this bottle is just about empty. But that looks pretty good actually. Steal from the next bench over. A little extra 5. Okay. So I'll make sure this is clean of shmoo or fuzz. Let me see what I'm doing here. Sorry for the weird angle. And I'll take a little plastic. Just make sure any bubbles float to the top. And then I'm going to hopefully center this thing so you can see the oil level start to come up. And I'm going to want this to overflow. I'm okay with that. And I'm looking for that shaft down here. And I'm going to slowly, it's hard to center it, but you'll find it. And then if you do it right, you don't lose anything. Boom. So now the shaft, this shaft has replaced this one, and this thing is still full of oil, but it hasn't lost anything. And it's going to start to come out here because it's pushing through the piston. I'm engaging that O-ring very slowly, because part of the process here is getting everything together, but also bleeding out any bubbles that are inside. Alright. The other part of this too is to also bleed the rebound adjuster end of it. So I gotta pull this out, and this will come out in 2 pieces, I believe, because it's a, or maybe this one's 1 piece. We'll see. Yeah, this is the 2-piece design. Come on, buddy. So this has 2 pieces. I'm not quite sure why they chose to do that. Maybe it just gives a little float. But same thing on this O-ring is in good shape, so I'm leaving that one alone. But you want to make sure that this whole system, including this part of the damper shaft, is also full of oil. Move this back a little bit. I need my cameraman. I miss you, Jose. Jose got some kind of viral infection's been going around, so he's not here today, so I'm solo. Get a little syringe. Syringe makes it so I don't have to have a big bottle of oil. But I'm going to fill this up too. Don't have to go crazy on this because it's going to displace. You can actually see as I fill this, this is starting to overflow. So that means that that's at the same level. Then we get our bumper, top out bumper. Make sure that buddy goes in there. I like these bamboo wooden sticks because they don't scratch. Just get that down and out of the way. This is so full of oil, I don't really have to do this, but I like to pre-grease stuff no matter what. So pre-grease the inside, and then the same thing with the other Judy one. We're going to use a very thin O-ring. Actually, that's right. I was also going to pack this. So again, because this is a cup seal, when I go to put this down into the oil, some oil will go up into the cup, but some bubbles will stay there. And the whole point of a damper is to have oil go through, not bubbles. So I'm going to pack this with slick honey. Slick honey basically just dissolves in suspension oil, so this will not really affect your damping. I think Max is about to arrive. Yep. Just so you know, I'm recording a YouTube video. So put your pants back on. Alright, so I got that all packed. So I'm going to run this little tiny O-ring through the seal, and that just gives a place for oil to escape as you're bleeding. You don't want a whole lot of it to go inside the damper because you don't want anything to get chopped and left in there. So let's see if you can see that. There we go. So let me give this a quick cycle. That is bottomed out. Good. Like that. Come on, buddy. Fill it again. Make sure it's all the way to the top, inside the body. And I can do that by filling this tube. You'll see it'll overflow. And once this is engaged, and I've got it pressed in most of the way, and I'm sure that it's not going to come out, I can pull this O-ring out. Because now that's relatively sealed. Make sure this is now tight because I'm going to shove on this a whole bunch. I don't want it to go anywhere. I'm going to use my socket again. You want to use a deep socket so you can get up over the shaft. And this is tricky because everything's covered in oil, it's slippery. So this one you really want to go a little slower because you don't want to go past where the plastic spacer is going to go. I also don't want to spray oil everywhere. But it's going to spray it. on, buddy. So as you press this down, it's going to squirt oil out of the rebound. And what I'm looking for is enough space to fit my plastic spacer and then the circlip, and not much more. So put the plastic part in, make sure that goes down. Let's see what the circlip wants to do here. That's kind of the best way, is to shove everything all at once so that the circlip engages. And then give it that same test, make sure it spins in the groove. Make sure it's all there. This is full of oil, so I can run that down and in. Same thing, it's going to displace a whole bunch of oil. And you just want to go slow so that it actually displaces. And then start to spin it in. I'm going to run this all the way in. It goes in pretty far before it starts to engage the actual damper, the piston hole. You need more rags. Alright, at this point, it should be done. I'm going to pull it out, check it. There's going to be oil everywhere. So since the compression side is open, it should move freely. And it's kind of hard to hear, but I'm basically listening for no bubbles. It's not going to be perfect because this isn't a vacuum bleed. And then I want to test to make sure that it is locking out as well. So I'll close this valve. And there it is, locks out. Open it up, moves. Pretty cool. And test for a rebound too. So that's faster. And all the way in should be slower. Yep. Again, not not super sophisticated, but got the job done for the day. But there you have it. Relatively simple. The nice thing about these is the kits are relatively cheap, and so technically this is something you could actually practice on, especially if you can go find a donor, Judy, or these are harder to find, but if you want to just find like a donor setup to play with, they're pretty easy to practice on. That's all I got for today. Huge thanks to Oliver once again for his patience. Thanks to Jose for the technical assistance via the phone. The bad part of the video will be eliminated, so don't worry about that. But anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget, thumbs up, like, subscribe, tell your friends, all that stuff, and buy a t-shirt. Thanks.